We're back, episode 2. For the haters that told us we'd never make it here we are, back again. Here to look through two massive cards this week. We've got Bellator 267 to look through. That comes from Friday night, the London card. Host of British names on that card. We'll also look ahead to UFC Vegas. That's coming up this weekend. And we can look back at, as promised, boys, one of the best cards of the year, UFC 266. I'm Adam Russell hosting this week. Ross Beaumont is back with us. George Hardy's back with us. Ross, I'm going to start with you this week. Talk to me about UFC 266. What's your initial feedback?
Mate, what a night. As expected, it was just absolutely unbelievable. That main event, oh my God. Ridiculous. That third round, mate. That third round, oh my God, no words. Well, yeah, I do have words. Incredible. No, but the whole night, mate, as expected, as predicted, it was just class. Lived up to every single bit of hype, and I loved it.
Yeah, every bit of hype and more. George, wouldn't you say? Do you reckon the main event fight of the year so far?
Ooh, it's definitely up there. That third round's probably the round of the year. I can definitely confirm that. The way I've never seen anything like Volkanovski when he got out with those two tight chokes from Ortega. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again.
I think
one of the masters.
The guillotine, when that was hooked in, and I was like, oh, okay, this is it. Like, here we go. To then get out of that one and find yourself in a triangle, surely he must have been thinking, okay, yeah, this is it. But then to get out of the triangle and finish the round in top position, battering Ortega, potentially could have even got the finish there. It's just, yeah, like you say, round of the year. And yeah, it's really difficult for those main event fights sometimes to live up to the hype. That's big title fights. You know, the build-up goes on for so long. So obviously, amazing that they managed to live up to that hype. Ross, I want to go back to who impressed you most, because there were some really standout performances and some really statement wins. But yeah, I want to know who impressed you most.
Well, it's hard to think past what George just said. That guillotine was so tight. Even Volkanovski himself said that it was as tight as could be. Like and Ortega is like the last person that you want on top of you like that. Maybe Charles Oliveira, they're both up there with the best. But yeah, the fact that Volkanovski stuck that out. Yeah, it's hard to say that anything was more impressive that night, to be honest.
Ortega did impress me, though.
Really? Yeah, Ortega, yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. Very impressive. Yeah, well, obviously saw his ground game shining, but fair play to Volkanovski's ground game.
Can you expand on that one, George, on being impressed by Ortega? Because yeah, to me, to a certain extent, I feel like we got what you always get with Ortega.
Nah, I wouldn't agree. He was giving it to. I'll start off by saying I think Brian Ortega was reinvigorated. He's been reinvigorated recently. It's when he went bald when he came back, and he just looked incredible. And he's got better since then. And now he's got his hair back, but he still looked absolutely incredible. I think he looked a lot better than when we saw him against Max. I mean, he nearly submitted the champion twice. Anybody else in the world other than Alexander Volkanovski was going out once and then twice. So you can't really put that on Brian Ortega. And in roundabout, I think it was the 5th round, when he was like, F it, I'm coming out here and I'm doing whatever, I'm just going balls to the wall. He was doing pretty well in that last round as it was as the bell.
You could make an argument that he could potentially have won the 5th round. You can make
that's what I mean. It's very impressive. Very, very impressive thing to do against the champion, especially considering the damage he'd taken in the rounds leading up to that.
Mate, he's got some of the best heart that you'll ever see, especially after seeing how he stuck with it against Max, and then what he was like against Volkanovski. He's got some of the biggest heart you'll ever see Ortega as.
I think I saw that he'd absorbed like 600 more than 600 significant strikes in his last 3 fights or something, which is mental.
Man, yeah. Building on what you said, George, about reinvigorating himself, Ortega. I think it was after the Max domination that he sort of realised, right, if I want to hang with these boys, I need to be able to strike. I need to improve my game. So he went back, he evolved, shaved his head, evolved himself, came back. We saw what he did to the Zombie. We saw his form against Ortega. He looked like champ material, to be honest. But that just shows how good Volkanovski is.
We've got a bit of an axe to grind on this fight, and we'll talk about our bets in a bit, Ross. And we can have a look how we're doing on our bet tracker as well. But we obviously called out Volkanovski round 4, 22 to 1 shot, right? And obviously it was a very, very close at about 3 occasions to being finished in round 4.
Yeah, mate.
And as Volkanovski said himself, technically, Ortega, at the end of the 4th round, Ortega was sprawled across the octagon. He didn't get up. He didn't go to his corner. His corner came to him and picked him up and took him to the chair, which technically, by the rules, is a technical knockout. Then, after the bell went, he was given like at least a minute where at one point the ref says, how many fingers am I holding up? And he gives him a wrong answer. Yeah. And then he gave him another go and he got a right answer, but I'm pretty sure he only got the right answer because he was only holding up one finger. So they got an extra 60 seconds rest. So I think that's as good a shot as it comes from me and you, Ross. 22 to 1 Volkanovski round, but we as good as won, in my opinion. Obviously, there's no money in the account, but in my opinion, we as good as won.
You'd be fuming, to be fair. If we'd actually put that bet on, I'd be fuming.
I did, mate.
You actually...
I had it on. Yeah. I had it on because I honestly thought... I was very confident in our prediction that he would wear him down over time and beat him up and finish him. And we both said it'd probably be a case of him getting knocked down and then getting finished with a bit of ground and pound. So we were close, but... yeah, like I said, we'll touch on our bets later, but that's the way it goes. Another person I want to talk about, George, because he was so impressive in his return fight against Nasrat Hakrapas, as we butchered his name a few times last week, but also just because he's agreed to step in on late notice at UFC 267 to take on Islam Makhachev. And that, of course, is Dan the Hangman Hooker. Firstly, before we touch on the Islam fight, because I know you've both got some opinions on that, what did you think of Dan's return and what his prospects like in that lightweight division now?
I'd like to say that I called that fight pretty much from the start. I said he was going to, Dan Hooker was going to come back and he was going to look good on the feet and he was going to pick him apart over the course of the rounds. He was going to land more strikes. And that's what he did. So just call me Mystic Hardy.
Did you expect, one of the things that surprised me was how dominant he was in clinch situations, and he lent on his wrestling a lot more than I'd seen him do in previous fights. Do you think that was something that he sort of evolved a little bit in most recent camps, or do you think that's something he's just not lent on enough?
Yeah, I think it's something he's been able to do for a long time. The guy trains with some beasts. We know other people from his camp that are good in the clinch. I think the guy's had that talent for a long time. He just likes to stand and bang at him. He just likes to stand and bang. And it's served him well and it's not served him well. And I think he's got to that point where a lot of fighters get to the point where they're like, yeah, I love to stand and bang, but you know what? I've got more than this. I can actually, I can carry myself to the title. I think he's come back with a bit smarter game plan and he's started to implement that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the key, isn't it? That maybe he's had a few losses. Maybe he's been through a few wars, and now he's looking at it as I can fight. Smarter is the word that you use there, and I think that's maybe right. He can fight a bit smarter than he currently does, and maybe win a few fights that might otherwise go against him. And as we say, 267. I think it's October 30th is the date. Islam Makhachev. I called it a banger alert when I put it in our chat before, Ross. Tell me that I'm wrong. Is that or is that not a potential banger?
It's a potential banger, but it's also potential for Makhachev just to do his thing and make it a ground controlling fight. So it could go both ways because I think Makhachev on the ground is as good as they come, in my opinion. I know he's yet to prove himself against some of the top dogs, but as we said in our chat, everyone's been ducking him. So. You never know. Hooker's
I think you can make an argument
that
Islam's the most ducked fighter in the UFC at the minute.
I'd say he is. There's obviously people that if they got offered that they'd take it without a doubt. Like even given his circumstance, Tony would still take it if he got offered. Like any of the top guys take it, but yeah, I won't want to be fighting Makhachev. He's another Khabib, really, isn't he? Just another Russian controlling wrestler that can dominate on the ground, and that's what he does, and that's what I think he'll do against the Hangman.
George, I've seen you shaking your head on the screen there, and I know that you feel differently about Islam. Talk to me. Islam Makhachev, you're not quite on board the hype train yet, are you?
I just look at it logically, and I've done this before, and we've been in this situation before, lads. I don't believe. It's not that I don't believe in Islam Makhachev, because I know he's obviously got the skill set, and he looks like he could be like Khabib, but it's just looks at the moment. He's not beaten anyone for me to agree with Ross's statement that he's as good as they come on the ground. We've not seen that yet. He's not been proven to do that yet. Until he fights the best of the best, he can't be called the best of the best, and that's how I see it. That's how it'll always be. And it's served me well so far. So I'm just not buying into it until I see him beat someone top caliber. When he does that, he can have my support and being the best of the best. But he's not done that yet, so he's not. End off.
Okay, fine. If he beats Dan Hooker, and if he beats Dan Hooker in a way that he's beaten his other opponents, would that be enough for you to kind of get on board the train?
Yes. If he beats Dan Hooker, holds him down and batters him, I'd say he's definitely elite. Yes, I'd agree.
Okay, fair enough. I should say it's a really good matchup, a bit of a clash of styles. We think it's dangerous for both men. There's chances for both of them. So yeah, it's set to be a really interesting addition to that 267 card. The other fights that obviously Valentina doing her thing against Lauren Murphy. I guess this pretty much went down as we all expected, didn't it?
Yeah, she went out there and did what she does best, just absolutely destroys. Just the whole time, she didn't look in trouble. Like, she got knocked down at one point, but it was hardly a knockdown. It was more of like a trip, or she like stumbled or something. So
it was a slip.
That was like the worst. Yeah, that was like the most vulnerable she looked, and it weren't even a knockdown. Everyone knew that's what was going to happen. I think even Murphy probably knew it.
George, but we obviously spoke last week about potentially Valentina and Nunes doing it for a third time. I believe Valentina's made a few comments this week about potentially being ready to do it for a third time. There isn't really another option, is there?
It seems that fate would lead us down the path of the third fight. But, I mean, historically, the fans don't want the third fight. If one person's won twice, it's not really a thing. But it seems that these two are on...
The second fight, you could easily argue that Valentina won the second fight.
Yes, definitely. But she didn't. And you could easily argue that Nunes won it, and Nunes did win it on the books. And it just seems that these two are on a collision course, and there's nothing that's going to stop either of them. When it happens, it's going to go off. Valentina's a lot better, but so is Nunes, and it's just such a hard one to call. But Nunes has already proven twice that she can win it. So my money would probably be on her. How old's
Nunes? Anyone know how old Nunes is?
Not sure off the top of my head.
I'm pretty sure she's 31 or 32. But
oh my God.
She's 33. She was 33 in May. So
I think Valentina's the same, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, again, off the top of my head.
Building on what you said, George, about the third fight, do you not want to see Max and Volkanovski 3?
That one's a bit different. Yes, you know my opinion on the second Max and Volk fight. We'll get into it because it's a very, very, very controversial subject. A lot of people disagree on it. But I'm of the opinion that Max won.
Yeah, me too.
I know that he didn't. So, but so that's how you could justify a third fight. But a lot of people would not.
Yeah, that's what we just said about Valentina and Nunes, though, about the second fight. So, but anyway, moving on.
The other one that I want to talk about, I can honestly say I haven't stopped thinking about it since it happened, was the first round of Merab Dvalishvili against Marlon Moraes, because I've been thinking about it all week and I still can't think, how would you even score a first round where both men probably could and should have had the stoppage at some point? Like, isn't 8-8 a thing? Because they arguably both nearly had the finish. Obviously, Marlon came out so fast and had Merab in trouble, and then the way Dvalishvili obviously came back and sort of dominated the fight from there on out was really impressive. But how the hell do you even score that? It was just, that for me was up there with round 3 of Volkanovski and Ortega, in terms of, I was up out of my seat going wild because I just could not believe what I was seeing. It was, like I said, I think it's definitely up there in terms of round of year. If Ortega Volk's in the conversation, then for me, Merab and Marlon should be in the conversation as well.
Can can I just say that I've never seen anyone look so assuredly about to win and then look so assuredly about to lose as Moraes did in that fight.
Yeah.
In a short space of time, it was like, right, he's got this in the. Oh my god, he's gonna lose. That was like the first round. I don't understand how it happened. The momentum, Dvalishvili, it's like something clicked in him, and he just the fight turned around all of a sudden, and then it was one-sided the other way.
But he just exploded.
Probably saw what Moraes saw. Go on, Adam.
No, go on, mate.
Well, yeah, he probably saw what Moraes saw. Moraes thinking, "Oh, I'm about to win." He would have seen the same thing. So obviously switched it on, turned the tables, and let it go.
What do you think about Merab? Like, how far up that division can Merab go? One of the obstacles for him is Aljamain Sterling is his good friend, training partner, was in his corner for the fight. Obviously, he's got the belt at the minute, and they've both said publicly that they wouldn't fight each other. So if he's looking towards a title shot, he's got to sort of wait in line. Obviously, Aljamain Sterling's obviously pulled out of his defense against Piotr Jan to be replaced by Cody Sandhagen. So that's going to delay that a bit. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that later on as well, because that's another great addition to the card that wasn't even there a few days ago. So, but yeah, Merab, is he champion material, do you think, from what you saw?
Maybe he's got to move up or down. Friends tend to do that. Look at DC and Velasquez. They never fought. They were like best mates, and DC sort of, it's almost as if he waited for Kane to retire and then he moved up and did his thing. Who else does it? I think, Ben Askren and Woodley, their mates, they said they'd never scrap.
I don't think they need to worry about winning a belt anytime soon, those two.
Nah, true.
Both got knocked out by Jake Paul. Both got beat by Jake Paul.
You never know how far they could go, though. And as I said, if they move up or down, like, there's competition everywhere. Like, every division's stacked to the roof in it. So it's hard to say how well he's going to do at this point. But he's definitely got talent.
Shall we have a look at the bets then from last week, lads? Because it wasn't a bad start, actually, for the Octagon Odds lads. Obviously, we talked already about Ross and I both going 22-1 on Volk to win in round 4. Obviously, a bit of an outside shot. That didn't land. In our tracking system, we're going to go with 10 units per bet. We'll take the odds from the time they were tipped up rather than from what they go off on fight night. So yeah, Ross, you lost 10 units on Volk. So did I. You also lost 10 units. You had 9-4 on Cynthia Calvillo. In hindsight,
I knew it was a long shot, but yeah, as I said last week, I like to root for the underdog, but I knew it was a long shot. It's a bit stupid to root against Andrade, but it's done now, innit? So we move forward.
I like your gumption of taking one on at 9-4 on the card, because I obviously did the same with Jorginho Rosenstrike, who again wasn't a great performance. He didn't really bring the pressure on Curtis Blades, who Curtis Blades put in a really good performance and obviously bounced back with a good win. But Rosenstrike didn't really come in with the pressure that I was hoping he would in round 1 and sort of really try and knock him out. We both lost those two. But we both had our accumulators come in. Yours was fourfold on Hooker, Merab, Valentina, and Volk at 3-1. And I landed 9-2 for Hooker, Merab, Andrade, Valentina, and Volk. So at the end of the night, leaves us both with a nice tidy bit of profits. I'm plus 35 units for the week. And Ross, you're plus 20 units for the week.
Not bad for the game. Hardy's got nothing.
I look back through the show, and obviously this is a betting podcast, and I don't remember you gave me picks until you think win the fight, but you never actually gave.
I don't think I gave a bet, did I?
No, you didn't give me a hard bet. When
that was
you do,
a bit of a mission.
When you do, I can add you to the tracker, and we'll keep track of your ability as well.
I think that's something we just skipped over by accident, lads. So.
One thing you did tip up, which I already think is not going to happen, was Nick Diaz to fight George St. Pierre.
That was if Nick Diaz won. That was if Nick Diaz won. But I also said Nick Diaz was going to look sad. And what did he look?
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't
been there with him.
We haven't.
They got 40 12-1 on Nick Diaz to look sad. That's what I got.
I'll add that one to the tracker as well. You did see GSP in the changing rooms before the fight, obviously shaking hands with Nick. So it seems like they've maybe put their issues to bed as well. So I don't think, regardless.
That's what they were agreeing on the fight.
Yeah, maybe
on the fight, shaking on it.
While we're talking about Nick, again, we all were kind of a bit concerned that he would be a bit of a shadow of his former self. And to me, there was glimpses of the old Nick Diaz in there, wasn't there? Maybe round 2, he came out there a little bit, and he landed some good shots. But obviously, the way the finish went, was it a sad thing for you, Ross? Was it were you disappointed, or was it what you sort of dreamt of seeing him back in the octagon?
It was quite surreal seeing him back in there after so long, and obviously he's such an icon in the sport. It was quite crazy to see him back in there, actually scrapping. It was a bit of a weird way to stop, wasn't it? He just sort of like threw the towel in on himself. But he took some mean body shots off Lawler, like a few good roundhouse kicks to the ribs and to sternum and that. I can imagine he was quite gassed. And even though it is Diaz and he's like cardio man, body shots like that are gonna gas you. But he got away some nice classic Diaz combos that we all love to see. That 1-2 was still there. Some of his body hooks still there. As I say, it was class to see him. But bit of an annoying finish, but I guess you can appreciate it.
Hear me out here, George. Nick Diaz, Anderson Silva, Triller boxing card.
I don't think Nick Diaz wants to fight. So no. I don't think we'll ever see that. I think that was the last time we'll see him fight.
I don't necessarily think he doesn't want to fight, or maybe he doesn't want to fight MMA.
Grasping.
He could get a big payday against Anderson for a boxing match, and all he has to do is worry about boxing, the hands. He don't have to worry about any of the other stuff.
I mean, he looked like he was throwing 2 little My Little Ponies on sticks at the weekend. He was he just looked soft. He looked soft in his body and his punches.
Slow.
He didn't look like he wanted to be there, and he quit. I can't imagine him doing anything again or fighting. He shouldn't have gone back.
What do we make of his comments afterwards? Obviously, basically in the octagon, he as good as said like he wasn't sure why he was really there and why the fight had been made. Obviously, not kind of a great look for the UFC to have, one of their top guys in the octagon after the fight, not really sure why he was there in the first place. Do you think that was just a kind of a heat of the moment thing, or how did you sort of take that?
It was weird, wasn't it? Do you not think it was very weird?
It was uneasy, wasn't it? It felt like something we shouldn't have heard.
His whole persona was sort of out there, wasn't it? Like, just what's like,
he just didn't want to be there.
No, I didn't want to be there at all.
Yeah, it was sad. It was quite depressing, to be honest with you, because that's one of my idols of the sport. When you look back at footage of Nick Diaz, he's just so endearing to watch and so passionate about it and stuff. And he just didn't see that. Like, where's the guy that was screaming for, "Where you at, George? Where you at, motherfucker?"
Yeah.
He just didn't want to be there, and something had gone wrong. Whatever had happened with his management, he needs to sort that out. But he shouldn't have been there, really. The only positive for him is the payday, really. Think about it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to take in from that card, and that was one of them. It was a bit depressing, I think, in the end. But it really looked like someone who was fighting because they had to rather than because they wanted to. But I think all the more reason for the Triller card, because pressure's off, just a nice payday, doesn't have to worry about being taken down or wrestled or tapped out or any of that. Like, and he gets a nice, and he gets to ride off into the sunset with Anderson. Because obviously, if he came back for money, he obviously needs it for whatever reason. He needs it, and he wants a payday before he gets past an age where he can fight. I don't think the Nick Diaz story is done yet. That's all I'm going to say. I don't think that is the last time he'll fight. Whether it be boxing, MMA, bare knuckle, it could be anything at this point.
Question is,
you could fight KSI. So who the hell?
Do you think he'll have a rematch with Lawler?
No. I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him in the UFC again. I'm pretty sure it kind of stunk of someone fighting out the last fight on their contract with the UFC so that they can go and do other things like Triller. Because it almost, if you look at it, it almost makes no sense. Like, he's been away for 6 years. Why now? You know, if he's not interested in a long-term comeback to MMA, he said as much. Why now? Well, to me, he's got one fight left on his deal with the UFC, or he had. He comes in against a guy like Robbie Lawler, who's also on a bit of a decline. You know, when things get a bit tough, he, like you said, threw in the towel on himself. He's now done with the UFC contractually, and that opens him up to go and do things where he might get a bit of a bigger payday for less of a risk. But that's just how I see it. I think we'll see him fight in some form again. But let's move on to looking ahead to this weekend. We're going to start with Bellator this weekend, Bellator 267. That's obviously on Friday night. So we'll start with that. The main event, Douglas Lima against Michael Venom Page 2. This is a class fight. Obviously, MVP is a legend of British MMA. Obviously, we've never seen him in the UFC, but he's forged himself a great name in Bellator. He's looking to get his one loss back from Douglas Lima. How do we see this one going? Ross, start with you. Talk to me about this one.
As you said, mate, it's his only loss to Douglas Lima, so he might have a bit of a chip on his shoulder. His only loss in his whole career. So he's here to avenge himself. He's here to prove something. He's such a mad fighter to watch. His style, fifth dan black belt kickboxer, and you can tell, like, you can see that in him. His stance sort of reminds me of like Wonder Boys, you know, his proper side on, like on his toes bouncing around, and his explosiveness and his unorthodox style is crazy to watch, and it's very effective, as obviously we've seen. Against Douglas Lima, though, it didn't work in the past, and I don't know if that style is going to work again. Douglas Lima, to be fair though, Douglas Lima is on a 2-fight losing streak, with Venom Page is on a 5-fight win streak, 4 of them being KOs from MVP. So that's another contributing factor in favour of MVP, really, isn't it?
We just asked the question about Nick Diaz, why now? And I think you can look at as you just said, the form going into this one. And if you ask the question, why now? George, do you think maybe MVP's looking at this, just as Ross said, Lima coming into this back-to-back losses, whereas he's coming in on a 5-fight win streak, and he's thinking, I'm on, one projection, and he's maybe on the way down, and he's trying to catch him on the way down. Is that how it looks to you?
No.
Fair enough. Moving on.
No, I'm a big fan of Douglas Lima, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Michael Venom Page too. But Douglas Lima, I think, has the right style to neutralize someone like Michael Venom Page, and we saw it last time. And they might be on a 2-fight losing streak, but one of them's to Musasi and the other one's to Amasov, and they're both unanimous decisions. So it's not like he's getting knocked out, he's getting finished. He's fighting big fighters, and Michael Venom Page has been fighting. Don't be getting me wrong, the fight he's fighting is good, but he's a bit of a can crusher here and there. I think he's part of his record quite a lot, being a can crusher. And what he does is he comes into fights and he keeps his hand low, and he goes in with his hands low, likes to land his kicks, likes to land his fancy stuff. He likes to do a lot of dancing, but that's not what you want to do against a guy like Douglas Lima, who's got fast hands, and he likes to counter, and he likes to find these openings on people. And that's what happened last time. And from what I've seen of Michael Venom Page, he's not really changed his style. So I think he's probably going to end the same way.
Is that how you see it, Ross? Obviously, there has, as he says, maybe there's been some evolution in Lima, but I think you can definitely argue that Page is a different fighter to the one that fought Lima the first time, can't you?
Yeah, I can agree with that, but it's well said by George. I think Lima has the style to neutralise him. As he said, literally, George put it really well. He comes in with his hands down, and Lima's a big counter striker, powerful, so accurate. And if Lima can land some of his leg kicks, oh my God, they are some mad leg kicks. And if he can like shut MVP's legs off, or at least damage him a bit, that's a huge part of Venom Page's game. So So yeah, I think Lima gets it done again. Gets it done in the 4th round with a TKO or KO.
Ooh, big call. What's the odds on that?
Good question. 4th round TKO. I haven't priced it up, but I can price it up and come back to you. One of the questions that I was going to ask is, obviously MVP has got, I think he's got something like 10 first round finishes in 20 fights. And you mentioned about his kind of explosive style and, changing stances. How much of Lima's game plan will revolve around getting it out of that first round? And as you say, taking it into round 3, round 4, round 5. Is how you see it playing out, just kind of a slow start and it build towards Lima?
Yes. Michael Venom Page, I think he'll come out. I think he's going to come out slower because he got knocked out. They'll be talking about smarter game plans. They'll be talking about keeping it at range. They'll be talking about don't fall into his traps. But fighters like Michael Venom Page, he's got such a unique style. When he gets going, he's going to fall into what's the word I'm looking for? He's going to fall into like natural body movement, muscle memory.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he's going to get. I think he's probably going to go a couple of rounds. And then eventually he'll be get caught with his hands down like he did last time. Probably like 3rd round, 4th round. Maybe Ross is right. Maybe 4th round.
Because if you remember the last fight, it was actually due to Lima's leg kicks that got him, tripped him up, and then just planted him on ground. As I mentioned, how accurate he is. If you watch that knockout, he's such an accurate hook there that he finishes Page with. Sweeps his legs, trips him, or he falls at least, and then just knocks him right on the button, right on the chin.
It's a nasty sweep.
And it's Nate.
Bloody Nate Adam.
So the betting odds actually go against both of you guys. So you both think Lima gets it done here. It is close at the minute, but yeah, we've got MVP 4-5 and Douglas Lima 10-11. One thing we should also note is that it's round 3. It's the 3-round fight, so there will be no 4th round.
Oh, fair. All right. Well, I'm
yeah. So you can have 9-1 on round 3 if you think it's going to go. But if in that case, obviously.
Yeah, I want 4th round odds.
I was wondering why I couldn't find them. Does that open up the chance of a decision win for Lima in your books? Then obviously you thought it was maybe going to go further than 3.
It changes it. Obviously the pace that they're going to fight at is going to be different. It's where that changes everything. It changes the game plans because where do you go for a point sort of win? Or...
I'd really like to petition Bellator to make this 5 rounds as well. If this is the main event.
I just assumed. Like I didn't bother looking. I just assumed.
Yeah.
In that case,
get Scott Coker on the phone.
I'm just going off the top then. Round 2 knockout from. I'm switching it. Page with the round 2 knockout. Why not? I'm just sending it out there.
He's gone for the switch fighter.
The switcheroo. The old switcheroo.
He's gone for the old switcheroo.
I apologise to anyone that's come in looking for some well-reasoned MMA betting tips. Because it's more of a feeling.
It's all just emotion.
Yeah, it's all inkling. Obviously, we're in profit for last week, so it worked out fine last week.
Yeah, and I made some calls. So
what about?
But I do think it's a valid reason. I think now that it's a 3, not a 5-round fight. They are going to fight differently.
Agreed.
As I said, I've just said what I thought.
George?
Yeah.
But
Lima MVP, give us a winner. 10-11 Lima, 4-5 MVP at the minute, but that could work.
I'm going to say take Lima because Lima's going to win and he's the underdog. So you're going to make your money back.
I am going to sit firmly on the fence on this one because it's a bit Diaz Lawler for me. Like, I really, really don't know. I've had a look. I've looked at the stats and I just don't know. For me, the 2 losses for Lima are a big factor for me. And I'm assuming that's a big factor for the bookies having MVP as a slight favourite. Form is important. And for me, MVP's going into this one looking at it is the only blemish on his record is the guy stood opposite him. Whereas Lima's coming into this one thing on the back of 2 losses, needing a win. So it's going to be a really interesting fight, and that's why I'm sitting on the fence. Check that one out at 9:30 p.m. UK time, because obviously this one's in London, and there's some other really good fights on the card. Some UK fighters in action. You got Liam McCourt in action, Tim Wilde's in action, Robert Whiteford. Now Ross Beaumont's only on the undercard. Desperate fighter. And yeah, that's Bellator 267. And yeah, we're going to move on to the UFC Vegas card straight after this commercial break. So, UFC Fight Night, Vegas, Walker v Santos. Johnny Walker and Thiago Santos headlining this one in the light heavyweight division. First, I need to go over to George's stats corner because I hear that you've got something for me on this fight, George.
Yeah, so Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker, we know these two men as quite wild, bomb-throwing men. That's how we know them. Thiago Santos has a bit more of a boxing style. Johnny Walker has a bit more of a whatever the fuck you're thinking about at that moment style. And Santos' style has worked out a lot better for him, I'd say. Nobody can forget that John Jones fight. He went balls to the wall with John Jones. The stats that I want to give you today are, we're going to start with significant strikes. Now, Johnny Walker lands 4.41 significant strikes per minute, whereas Santos lands 4.27. So in that regard, they're quite similar. And those are reasonably high as well. But Johnny Walker has 72% significant strikes, and Thiago Santos has 48% significant strikes. So Santos is throwing the same amount as Walker, but Walker's putting more leather into them and landing more. So what you'd like to think, if it comes down to a slug match, which it likely will, is Johnny Walker might have the advantage. But what we have seen is Johnny Walker's chin is suspect to going when it gets smacked, and Santos has got quite the chin on him. So next we'll go on to strikes absorbed per minute. Johnny Walker's is 3.51, and Thiago Santos's is 2.33. So Santos's defense is a lot better than Johnny Walker's. So what I'm suspecting is what's going to happen off the statistics based on the striking, because I think it's going to be a striking battle. I don't see it really going to the ground. Is Johnny Walker's going to be throwing a lot of his crazy stuff. Santos is probably going to ride the wave and probably catch him on the counter. We've seen that happen to Walker before. And I reckon Thiago Santos might take it within one round with a knockout.
Okay, interesting take, Ross. I want to hear your thoughts straight back on that. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I see Santos getting the win. As George said, it's going to be a stand and bang. Like I said, I don't see it going to the ground. I think they both want to just stand up and batter each other. Thiago Santos' Muay Thai is so good at, like, his striking is so good, I think. We've seen what he did to Jones. He's beaten the champ. He's beaten Jan Blachowicz in the past. Knocked him out. The Polish power knocked him out. I feel like, I don't know this for sure, but I feel like since the Jones fight has gone downhill, because as we know, he suffered some ACL and meniscus injuries. I think it was during that fight he actually sustained them and still almost beat Jones. I think it was like round 2 that he sustained them injuries and still almost beat arguably the GOAT. But since then, yeah, he's lost to Alexander Ratic, unreal guy. Glover Teixeira, getting submitted by him is like no shame in that, I guess. And then the decision to John was just before that.
Would you argue that Santos, in fact, you could probably argue that, I think it's right, it's a good matchup. And you could argue that both men could still make a run at the belt in this division. We've obviously spoke about light heavyweight not being the thickest of divisions. And if you look at Santos's record, obviously you spoke about the Jones fight. It's only just over 2.5 years since the Jones fight. So it's only 2.5 years since he went 5 rounds with the greatest light heavyweight of all time, and arguably beat him. And it's only 2 years. Sorry, it's 2 years since the Jones fight, and it's 2.5 years since he beat Jan Blachowicz, who's obviously now the champion. The 3 losses in between have kind of stalled any momentum that he could get from that. But given that he has a dub over the champ, surely Santos is really only a couple of fights away from really being able to stake a claim in this division as the next man to fight Jan. Ross, surely.
Yeah, I do see him as one of the best in that division. And when it comes to striking, I really do honor his striking. So I think he's so sharp, so powerful. He's just got pristine striking, in my opinion. And the way that he can advance as he's striking and still maintain the same power and accuracy, incredible. He's got some mad kicks as well. But then you look at Johnny Walker and some of his knockouts. He's had a knockout with a flying knee. He's had an elbow knockout and a spinning back fist knockout. So he
could first round, 15
time.
Seconds that spinning back fist KO in round 1.
15 seconds.
15 seconds in round 1, and he went for a kick and then followed straight through with a spinning back fist and just knocked him out. It was unbelievable.
That's what I mean. He's the type of guy that can win any fight. He's outmatched by a lot of fighters, but he's got the potential to win any fight. And because he can just throw whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And there's a few fighters that can do that, and they've got that potential to end it whenever, at a random point. And if a cartwheel kick or something, I won't even be surprised if I see a cartwheel kick off him.
Yeah, something obviously Walker is a really flashy, unpredictable, quite an exciting character. He dances, his way into the octagon, and in many ways he's got all the attributes to be a massive star in the UFC. Is exactly the type of person that the UFC look for as the kind of person they build a division around, potentially. Yeah. But George, I don't know how you feel about him in the big spot. The biggest spots he's been in his career so far, he's lost all of them. He lost to Corey Anderson, and that really set him off. He lost to Nikita Krylov. After that, he got one back against Ryan Spann, but it wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't exactly he did knock him out, but it was a bit of a back and forth fight. Do you think he struggles with the bright lights a little bit and is maybe flashy because of that to kind of overcompensate, or do you think he's kind of learned those lessons and can sort of put it into action here?
Neither of those. What I think has happened to Johnny Walker is there's a certain type of fighter that has a unique fighting style, and it works as they rise through the leagues, but when they get to the top, it doesn't work anymore because it's too flashy, and the people at the top are going to catch you out. And that's what I think has happened to Johnny Walker. As he's grown and grown, his flashy style's got him wins against people that are less skilled. But when he's getting to fight the big dogs, they're finding him out, and they're not buying into these games that he's playing and this crazy stuff that he's doing, and he's getting caught out. Santos is the type of guy to catch him out. Like you said, Santos has been on a bit of a losing streak. So he's not in the best form, but I do think he has what it takes to get it done against someone with the style of Johnny Walker, because styles make fights after all, Adam.
Yeah, and I think one of the things obviously you mentioned about Santos' losing streak, but his last 4 fights are obviously Blachowicz, John Jones, Glover Teixeira, and Alexander Rakic. So he's been fighting. Yeah, well, yeah, he's been fighting absolute dogs. So maybe that does kind of help him in itself. Betting wise, interesting in this market, yeah. Santos opened the betting as a reasonable favourite in this one, and it's pretty much remained that way. There's been some good support in the market actually for Santos. He's 8-13 favourite at the minute. Johnny Walker 7-5, and still drifting. So you could be looking at kind of 9-4 maybe for Johnny Walker, sort of what we're looking for before the fight goes off at as much as 9-4. Given what we mentioned about him being so unpredictable and the fact that he does things that other light heavyweights just simply can't or don't do, does that make him an interesting bet at that kind of price?
Yes, it does. If I was doing an ACCA, I'd put Santos, but individually, Walker's not a bad bet to put a bit of money on because, like you said, anything can happen with that man. So you could put the wackiest bet on you find on there, and it's a chance he might do it. There's a chance he might do it. You just never know. So, it's not. Santos is the favorite. So if you have an ACCA, put him on, but you just never know with Walker. So if you fancy chucking a bit on that, you might be pleasantly surprised by the end of the night.
Ross, do you feel the same way on that one?
I do, yeah. Yeah, well said, George. If it was an accumulator, yeah, Santos is your guy. But as I said before, Johnny Walker throws mad moves at mad times when you wouldn't expect it. So yeah, anything could happen. He could knock anyone out on his day, just randomly. But yeah, I think it's a Santos win.
Okay, well, yeah, either way, it looks like it's going to be a really good matchup, that one. Styles make fights, as we say, and it looks to be a really good matchup. I think it could be a really explosive fight. So, yeah, don't miss that one. That's the main event. George, you touched on a really interesting point about flashy fighters who can maybe work their way through the divisions. And that brings us on to Kevin Holland, who makes his return to face Carl Dorcas. George, we'll go straight to you on this one. Is Kevin Holland someone who's suffered a bit from being maybe a bit too flashy?
Yes, you've seen the exact case, an exact case study of what I was saying before. A guy that's come up and he has put his hands on the. I hate to say lesser fighters because if you in the UFC, you're a mean bastard. So when I say that, right. I don't mean any disrespect. But the lesser fighters, he's put his hands on him, and then he's come up and he's realised at the top it's a dog eat dog world, and the wrestlers aren't going to give you any forgiving, and even the strikers aren't going to give you any forgiving. Now, Kevin Holland is very unique in the fact that he has very, 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 very high strikes landed per minute, and very, very low strikes absorbed per minute. Which is very surprising, really, because I feel like when I've seen him in fights, he takes a beating sometimes.
He's very he likes to stay at range, doesn't he? And he jumps in with his strikes and jumps back out of range. That's kind of he's got an explosive style in that sense. I was thinking that I feel like with Kevin Holland, like he maybe talked his way. Obviously, I know he took a few short notice fights in that run as well, which has helped him on that progression, but maybe he talked himself into a few fights that he technically wasn't ready for yet. The Brunson fight for me probably exposed it more so than the Vettori fight, but it exposed two things. One, that the talking that he does in the octagon is great when you're winning, and people love it when you're winning, and it makes everyone think you're a great character. But when you're being mauled on the ground and out wrestled and out struck, it doesn't come across well. And I think it was almost embarrassing, the Brunson fight at times, the way he was going on in the ring. And I think that's kind of exposed his weaknesses even more so. And I think the second thing that Brunson exposed is obviously that his wrestling just isn't where it needs to be in this middleweight division if he wants to be a contender. And I think Brunson really exposed that, and Vettori obviously copied it. Ross, if you're Carl Dorcas coming into this fight, surely you're looking to test whether or not Holland's gone back to the drawing board with his wrestling or not.
Well, I've got a few things to say about Kevin Holland. First of all, he's 28 years old, so he's got a lot of time. He's not at his peak yet, at his physical peak. They say it's 30 to 32. So he's got time. He's also been wrestling with DC since the Brunson fight. So he's had one of the best wrestlers in the world teaching him how to wrestle. So I think that's it's going to obviously help him a lot. How can it not if DC's managing you? I think there's no shame in getting wrestled by Brunson like that, because Brunson is a top class wrestler. He did the same to Darren Till. Even though Darren's not known for his wrestling, he's definitely a top guy in my eyes. And Brunson did the same to him. I also think that Kevin Holland's jiu-jitsu should get more credit than he does get. I think he's got decent jiu-jitsu. Look what he did to Jacare, even though he didn't submit him or anything. But Jacare is one of the meanest dudes on the ground ever. Like, yeah, he's quite old. What is he? Almost 40 at least. Nevertheless, though, his jiu-jitsu is one of the meanest that we've ever seen Jacare's, in my opinion. And Holland managed to scramble with him, obviously pulled back and got a vicious knockout. Obviously in 2020, I'm pretty sure he got Fighter of the Year award, didn't he? Got 5 wins in 2020, 5 out of 5 wins.
Correct.
But yeah, from Kyle's perspective, I think you want to get it to the ground just from what you've seen happen to Holland in the past. I think on the feet, Kyle's outmatched. Yeah, he's going to try and get to the ground, I believe.
Yeah, on Kyle, because he doesn't shoot, like his offensive wrestling and his takedown offense is not a huge part of his game.
He submits though.
Yeah, his jiu-jitsu is good, but he waits for an opportunity, he strikes, and he waits for an opportunity to kind of be ruthless on the ground. I really like his style. Obviously, he's the younger brother of Chris Dorcas, who we saw in action on Saturday. He picked up another win, the heavyweight. He's former Cage Fury middleweight champion, and it's only his 4th UFC appearance. So there is a bit of a difference in kind of UFC experience between the two, and whether that'll be a factor or not. But I like his style. He's big, strong. He stands at range. He works really hard with his lead right hand to create opportunities to land big straight lefts, and he's got a real strong big left hand. I think he'll be the bigger of the two guys as well. That's another thing I sort of worry about with Kevin Holland, George, is he big enough to compete with some of these middleweights? Obviously, yeah, Vettori and Brunson out wrestled him, but you could argue that, yeah, they just outsized him a little bit as well.
Yeah, he's such a laid back man that I think he's fighting in the division that he should be, and nobody else is. So I would say that he is probably outsized by most people in that division, and a lot of wrestlers are going to be able to throw him about. So I want to hark back to something Ross said about DC training him, whereas I think DC only trained him a couple of times.
He's actually been working really hard
times.
He's actually been working hard with Johnny Hendricks. That's going to be in his corner at the weekend. So he has been working on the wrestling big time. So
Johnny Hendricks, I'm just going to say, okay. Yeah, he's a good wrestler. But yeah, he's only trained with DC a couple of times, Ross. I think he put it on his story or something, didn't he? But I didn't
mean it was like a permanent thing, but even still, I'd take a few tips off DC. You've got to go a long way, surely.
I don't think it's going to go so far as like making him a better wrestler, though, unless he's been... I imagine he's been drilling it, but the hole's quite big. And we'll just have to wait and see, to be honest. He's got, like you said, he's got a lot of time.
Here's what I like, though, about what Kevin Holland's done since the Vettori loss, is we used to hear a lot of Kevin Holland. He was out there, all over social media, and that, as to a certain extent, he's gone a lot quieter. It seems like he has gone away and worked on the wrestling, whether or not, as you say, George, he's had enough time to put that into action yet. But I don't think he'll probably maybe have to lean on it as much as we think in this fight. Going back to Dorcas as well. Obviously, we mentioned Dorcas likes to keep people at range. That's one of the things he's good at, is keeping distance. But Holland's got, I think it's a 5 or a 6 inch reach advantage, Ross. So will that actually help Holland in, if Dorcas does try and keep him at range, that should give him the advantage in the striking, shouldn't it? Obviously, with Holland's a mean striker at the best of times.
You'd think so, mate. Yeah. As we said before, he's maybe not big or heavy enough for that weight class when it comes to wrestlers, but the other side of that is that he's long and fast and agile. So yeah, it might not help him when it comes to the wrestling and like the physicality side of it, but yeah, it's going to help him with that side of it, I believe. And yeah, I think if Dorcas tries to keep the range and tries to keep it on the feet, Holland's going to be able to do what he does and pick him up. Piece him up.
So yeah, is that how we both see it going then, Kevin Holland, or can either of you make a case for Dorcas in this one?
I'm going to sit on the fence in this one.
Yeah, I think it's a decision win for Holland.
So yeah, the betting odds at the minute: Kevin Holland 8-13 favourite, Dorcas 5-4. Again, that's strengthening in Kevin Holland's favour. Dacus is drifting a little bit. So again, he could be another interesting bet on fight night, especially if you think it's just going to be a stand and bang, because that, and obviously anything can happen in those wild exchanges. But yeah, decision win for Kevin Holland. You both see it that way then? You're sitting on the fence. Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I can't call this one.
That's interesting. I'm surprised that you've not called that one either way, to be fair.
I just don't know. I just don't know.
Just even the fact that you don't know, is that enough? Especially if Dorcas is drifting from sort of 5 to 4 outwards, and you can obviously double your money. Is it worth a go? Or do you really not know that you just think it could go either way, and I don't want to bet on it?
I just think it could go either way, and I won't want to bet on it. I can't guarantee in my head how Kevin Holland's going to come back. Like you said, has he been working on his wrestling? Is he better at it? Is he not better at it? Is he come out the same? Is you just don't know, and I just feel like I wouldn't put any money on this one because I'd just be too unsure about it.
The way I'm sort of looking at it, as you said before, how you call them, like whatever you said, the fights that aren't top level, however you worded it. Do you see Dorcas as top level? Because if not, that's the caliber.
I wouldn't say that Kevin Holland is top level though.
No, I wouldn't either. But Kevin Holland has been beating these guys that aren't top level, and I'd put Dorcas with them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's not a top level. It's not proving that he's any good. Basically, is what you're saying.
No. I mean, so like the 5 wins that Holland got last year are against guys that aren't top of the game.
Right.
They're like contenders. I'd see Dorcas as a contender, and these are the type of guys that Holland was just battering. You know what I mean?
Right, okay. So you think he's going to beat this person?
So I'm not saying he's going to batter him, but I do think that. Yeah, I do. That's why I think he'll win.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Kevin Holland win on this one as well. I'm not going to sit on the fence on this one because I think. Yeah, like Ross said, I think these are the kind of guys that Holland has been beating, and I think this has been put together to try and get Holland back on track because he is a reasonably big name, and we know that Dana likes him because he does things like fights 5 times in a year, and that's exactly the sort of thing that Dana likes. So it does feel a bit like the Hooker fight with Nasrat in a sense that this is a good opportunity for Holland to get back in the win column and sort of get that momentum going. The 2 contenders, put them together, whoever wins, it's a win-win situation for the UFC because they get, a contender off the back of it. So, it's going to be an interesting fight. But, I think Kevin Holland, 8-13, which brings us on to the final fight we're going to run through on this card, which is Alex Oliveira against Nico Price. At welterweight. Not a great deal of form in either of these two actually coming into it.
No.
Oliveira's coming in off back-to-back losses. He lost to Randy, got subbed by Randy Brown last time out. Price is coming into this one with 3 losses in his last 4, and he drew with Cowboy Cerrone in the middle of that as well, which obviously, given what we've seen out of Cowboy, again, is maybe not the best form. It's for me, this is probably more difficult to call than any of the other fights that we've been through so far today. Does anyone else see it differently to me?
It was quite hard to sum this one up actually. It's hard to compare them, but the deciding factor that did it for me was that the caliber of opponents that Nico Price has been fighting a lot higher than Oliveira's opponents, I'd say. So as I said, you've got Michel Pereira. He lost a decision to him, drew to Cerrone, and Price was actually buzzing that he drew to Cerrone. If you saw it after, he was really buzzing. And Cerrone was like, "What are you doing? Why are you happy?"
I think he was just delighted to be fighting Cowboy, wasn't he? From what I saw in the interviews after, they were just hugging, and he was even at the end of the start of the 3rd round, they had a big hug in the middle of the octagon, I think.
Yeah, but and he's also lost to Vicente Luque, which, but what a beast Luque is, and Jeff Neal as well, which is also a top contender. So Price, he's lost a lot recently, but he's losing to top guys, but obviously not Cerrone and like.
He doesn't look bad either.
Michel Pereira's. No, he doesn't. I think he looks pretty good.
He doesn't ever look bad.
I think Oliveira never really looks bad, and he can turn up on his day. Oliveira can.
I think he's the biggest gatekeeper of all time.
I think
Oliveira.
gatekeeper is the absolute word for it. I was going to pull out one of these stats for you, but since his first UFC appearance in March 2015, this weekend will be Oliveira's 21st UFC fight since then in what, 6.5, a little over 6.5 years. So gatekeeper's one word for it. I'll call him a workhorse for the sake of a better word. Exactly. You know, he's a Danish company guy. Must be big friends with White. You know, gets him on 3 or 4 cards a year. He wins some, he loses some. I guess, gatekeeper maybe is the best word for it then, isn't it?
Yeah, I do agree that he is a gatekeeper, but to be a gatekeeper, you've got to be decent. Do you know what I mean? Like Cerrone, like not really now. Cerrone's not like, well, no, Cerrone's, I'd still say he's a gatekeeper. You've still got to be good to be a gatekeeper. You know,
you got to be good to be in the UFC. To be fair.
Well, yeah, obviously. But yeah, I don't think being a gatekeeper is sort of a negative point. Do you know what I mean? Because
that's a lie. Sorry, not you, me. Fucking CM Punk was in the UFC.
I mean, no, that's fair.
Ben Askren.
Yeah, so has Ben Askren.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so I don't think it's a bad thing to be called a gatekeeper, because like we mentioned before, they're very, very similar, but I do think Nico Price comes out on top.
I've got some more stats for you as well, George. I know you were looking at the strikes landed and the strikes absorbed in your research, clearly. And I was looking at it in mine. And in this one, I pulled out an interesting nugget. Price always likes to come in and put on a good pace. We know that. He lands a lot of kicks. He does a lot of good work with the kicks. He's got a really nasty calf kick, an inside leg kick, which is real nasty. But in terms of comparison between the two, Price will come in with a bit of a pace, plus 2.2 extra strikes landed per minute. So you were comparing like 3-6 percentage. It was about 2 extra strikes per minute landed here. But he also...
That's for Price, is it?
Yeah. He also then leaves himself open to counter-striking opportunities. And he has 3.6 more strikes absorbed per minute than Oliveira. And I think that, for me, is where this fight will be won and ultimately lost, in my opinion, for Nico Price. Because I think he will leave too many opportunities for Oliveira to counter-strike. And that is one of Oliveira's biggest weapons, is sitting back and landing those big shots, counter-strike. And I think that's his opening into this fight for me. And I think even if it does come to the clinch and the wrestling, I haven't seen enough out of Price, wrestling-wise, to think that Oliveira maybe doesn't even have the upper hand there as well. At the minute, Nico Price, 8-13 favourite with the bookies. So I'm making a case here for Oliveira at 5-4. And in fact, in any case, this is my bet for the week. Not just Alex Oliveira to win, but to win via decision at 4-1. That's my case. What do you think of that? Alex Oliveira, he's obviously, I mentioned the counter-striking. We know Price is going to leave those opportunities. Do you disagree?
I disagree. I'll tell you why. So Price does absorb more strikes per minute, but he's also been proven to be able to take that. Alex Oliveira has been proven to wilt under pressure. And I think if there's one thing that Nico Price brings, it is pressure. I can see Nico easily coming in there and putting pressure on him, and it becoming a bit of a war. Nico being able to take the strikes and Alex Oliveira getting worn out over time and possibly finishing it. And I know you said that Alex has the advantage in the grappling, but both of them have. Alex Oliveira's takedown accuracy is 37% and Nico Price is 20%. So I don't think we're going to see this go to the floor.
I don't think it's even more about. I don't think either of them will necessarily shoot for a takedown, but I think it could end up on the ground from the striking, and both of them have shown that they're capable once it does get there. I don't think either will necessarily be trying to hook single legs or anything.
No.
I think on paper it's probably going to be a banger. Like we know that Ross, that Nico Price comes to fight. Like whenever he turns up, he comes to fight.
He certainly does, mate. So is Oliveira. Like some of the remember his fight with Yancy Medeiros. Or who he's got that was like get fight of the year or something.
That was like 2017.
But he's still.
When you fight 5 times a year, though, you're bound to have a couple bangers thrown in there. That's what I mean about him being a workhorse, mate.
Yeah.
So yep.
So you tell me then you're leaning what? Nico Price? Can you get on board me?
I think Nico Price takes the decision win.
Decision win for
Me
Nico
too.
Price. That was
Me too.
4-1 as well, both of you on Nico Price as well for a decision win. Okay, looks like I'm out on my own. I've made my impassioned case there for Alex Oliveira. So just moves us on to our last section. We'll run through our bets for the night. So is that the one that you've pulled out, Ross, George? You bet for the night? You're on Nico Price by decision at 4-1 in the last fight, or have you got another one for me?
No, just the ones that we mentioned already.
I'm gonna take my bet of the night is to bet on Johnny Walker.
Okay.
Because he like we said before, anything can happen, and he makes it so that something crazy is going to happen at some point. And that could be the end of the fight. So there's a good chance that it could end in any of the rounds from Johnny Walker. So it's good money to put on him, I reckon.
7-5 Johnny Walker at the minute, and as we were saying before, that's drifting. So if you potentially hang on until fight night, you could get a bigger price. Obviously, shop around. There is a bit of value to be had out there as well. What about ACCA-wise? Obviously, Ross, we had some success this week, so I'm going to go for it again this week. This time I'm only going fourfold, and we're going to leave Bellator because that's on Friday night, and I don't want it to disturb my sheet. I want to watch all the fights on Saturday with a clean card. I don't want to risk my ACCA being done with on Friday night because that's just the worst. So I'm going with Thiago Santos. I'm going with Kevin Holland, Alex Oliveira, as I've mentioned, and Aspen Ladd is also fighting further down the card. I think she'll get the win as well. That comes out at 15-2. So again, some really good value there if you think. With me, I don't know if you disagree on any of those selections for the ACCA. I know you've told me about Nico Price, so you're not seeing that one, I guess.
Yeah, mate. I'm going to go Nico Price with the win. Kevin Holland gets it, and so does Thiago Santos. And yeah, I think it's a good idea to leave Bellator separate. That would be a real bummer if your ACCA was done before it even started.
Predictions, lads, on the UFC card, fight of the night. Where do you see that one going?
I think it could easily be any of the top three. Leaning towards Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker, but the other two could easily be bangers as well.
Yeah, fight of the night. I'm going to say Alex Oliveira and Nico Price. Fight of the night.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Oliveira, Nico Price. For me, that's got all the makings of fight of the night. On your ACCA, Ross, so you've gone Thiago Santos, Kevin Holland, Aspen Ladd, Nico Price. That's 5-1 at the minute. You probably get a bit more than that further towards the time. So that just leaves me with the responsibility of reminding you, Ross, and me, and everyone listening to gamble responsibly.
Man's not done his ACCA.
Matt, have you got an ACCA, Abby? I didn't realize.
I'm just going to make some. Okay. I'm just going to make some picks.
Okay, well, let me just remind everyone to gamble responsibly because that's obviously a big part of our message here. But yeah, I'll price it up for you. Tell me.
Always gamble responsibly. Always gamble responsibly. I'm gonna go for Santos, and then I'm gonna go for the Cows.
Yeah. And
then I'm gonna go for Price.
Yeah.
And then a rogue one, I'm gonna go for Serkinov.
Serkinov, okay. Well, give me a second to talk amongst yourselves while I price that one up.
All right. While he's doing that, George, who do you think is going to get performance of the night?
That's a great question. Nico Price.
Performance of the night.
Nico Price is going to pull off some performance.
It's tough.
So just let me remind you, so you're Thiago, Nico Price, Kyle Dacus, and Serkinov as a fourfold.
Yep.
Brings you out 11.29 to 1. So yeah, nice little price for you. We'll see how we all get on with that one. Performance of the night, Ross. Who do you think that's going with?
It's going to Kevin Holland. He's going to come out, and I think he's got a few doubters. I think there's a few doubters in this call. And yeah, he's going to come out, and I reckon Kyle might even get hold of him, maybe even get a takedown. I think he's going to look pretty good, mate. I think he's one of those cases where, let's use Ortega as an example, gets battered by Max, goes away and works on his holes. I know it's not been that long for Kevin Holland, but he knows what his holes are and he knows what he needs to do to fix them. And he's got a chance to show it now. I think he's going to come out and get performance of the night.
I just think I want to remind ladies and gentlemen that Ross is notorious for buying into hype trains. Every single time buys in. So just take that advice with a pinch of salt. Take that advice with a pinch of salt.
The train's not at the station though, because he's lost twice. So it's not a hype train.
No,
I can't really talk. I backed Conor McGregor against Poirier in the second fight because I jumped straight back on the hype train. So we're all susceptible.
Right about.
We're all susceptible to jumping on the hype train for every once in a while. But yeah, Kevin Holland, very much looking forward to seeing him back in action. We've got Bellator 260.
Before.
Nah, he's too miserable to jump on a hype train.
Oh, I know what hype. You're on the Adesanya hype train.
Oh yeah, because Adesanya's not
world
class. I'm on the Adesanya hype train. No, I was on the Adesanya train.
You thought he'd beat Jan?
Yeah, no,
that's
but
not
he's still
hype
world
train,
class. He's still the best middleweight, one of the best middleweights of all time. I was like, hype train. He's just proven world class. He's beaten some of the best fighters in the world.
No, yeah, I'm just saying you thought he would have beaten Jan.
This could honestly go on all night if I let it. So I'm going to draw this second episode of Octagon Odds to a close. Again, I'm going to ask people, please gamble responsibly. If you are listening, please give us a rating or a review on SoundCloud, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, wherever you're listening. Let us know what you think of the show. Leave us a review. Follow us on socials at Octagon Odds. That's it. We're done.
Peace.
Nice one, guys. Thank you very much.